Thanks for watching live or listening back to this show from Teachers Talk Radio. You can catch up with all our shows by visiting our YouTube channel or by listening back at ttradio.org. Don't forget to like and subscribe to enjoy more live education conversation from TTR. We hope you enjoy this show.
Outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
A very good evening to you and welcome to this special edition of The Late Show here on Teachers Talk Radio. I am your host for the next hour and a bit. My name is Darren Lester. I am joined by three amazing language teachers who realistically need no introduction, but whom I will introduce shortly. And we are going to be talking about the best CPD for MFL teachers. I was so excited when we had this pitched to us because CPD is one of my biggest interests at the moment. It's making up quite a big part of my doctoral thesis. So I'm spending days and weeks and months up to my knees in theory about it. So I'm really excited to talk to Silvia, to Maud and to Joe today, and to find out exactly what the National Consortium for Languages Education is doing to really revolutionize CPD in our domain. So this is awesome. Hopefully it's going to be very little of me talking and lots of me making notes. Because I want to know everything that is happening and I want to be able to write about it in my thesis. I'll cite you all, obviously, but I'm really excited to find out what's going on. So let me introduce everybody. I'll do a quick 30-second who I think you are, and then if there's anything that you want to add in, then let me know. Let's start with Silvia. Silvia is amazing. First of all, I've met Silvia on a few occasions now, particularly at Teachers Talk Connect events, and she always gives the very best advice, the very best opinions, the very best ideas. Silvia is head of languages at Urquhart Academy in Telford. She is a German expert mentor with the Goethe Institute, and we're going to talk a lot about that later on. She is a fellow of the Charter College of Teaching, an ALL council member and HMO, as well as being an experienced German language teacher. She has also developed German teaching materials for the new Languages Teachers online CPD platform, which is what we're going to talk about today. Have I missed anything, Silvia?
No, I think right. You are pretty right, so yes, you're on spot on.
Perfect. I love it. Right, Maud. Maud is a teacher of French, German and Spanish at the City of London
Sorry,
Academy.
I'm going to interrupt you,
Oh,
Darren.
no German.
No German.
Please do. My notes are wrong.
I wish I could learn German, but not yet.
There we go. That's a goal. The CPD. We're all about
Exactly.
professional development, teaching German. This time next year, A-level.
Possibly.
All right, let's see if I get the next bit right. She is a radio chat hostess here at Teachers Talk Radio. She does the Sunday afternoon show, as well as being a proud member of the Association for Language Learning. Anything else that you wanted to add?
Yes, I used to be involved in Teachers Talk Radio, but since I'm working a lot on decolonizing the curriculum in my spare time, I stopped after doing 60 live shows. I'm also, so I'm 2 days a week in the classroom in North London, and I'm 3 days a week working for the NCLE.
Amazing. You've done some really cool stuff about decolonizing the classroom. Every time you pop up on LinkedIn, I'm really excited to see what you've got to say and what you've been working on. I think it's such a valuable thing to do. So thank you for all that work, and I'm really excited to see where you go with it.
Thank you.
And then Joe, I think that's right. Joe probably needs the least introduction out of any of us, but because Joe is so very experienced, I'm going to make sure that I try to get this right. Here we go. Joe is an independent consultant who works with a range of organizations such as Network for Languages, the ALL, the British Council, and the BBC. Joe is a regular conference speaker and recognized expert on technology and language learning. He has spoken at conferences, he's run training courses here in Europe, across North America, in the Far East, in Australia. Joe goes everywhere to do his thing. It's brilliant. His blog, hopefully still at joedale.typepad.com, has been nominated for Edgeable Awards, which is the dream, I think, for many of us to have that kind of impact.
Fantastic.
Joe, anything that we need to...
Yeah, I think the bio's slightly out of date, but never mind. That blog I stopped writing 12 years ago now. But
okay.
I'm very active. As we all know, on social media, on LinkedIn, and my Facebook group, Language Teaching with AI. And I'm regularly posting different posts, sharing hopefully good practice if we're talking about CPD, and lots of other people are contributing as well. And I'm also the AI project lead for the NCLE as well, which means that I've been very busy making many tutorials for the AI and MFL strand on Leo. And more recently, I've been supporting the different networks with their AI projects as well. So it's great to be here.
Amazing. To be fair, I don't think we can blame the bio writer for your bio being out of date, Joe, or yours, to be fair, Maud, because you both do so much. It's hard to keep on top of what everyone is doing. So I think we'll forgive that. So we have been brought together by the NCLE today to talk about the best CPD for MFL teachers. And I'm going to start by asking what we are all looking for in our CPD, because I think that's a very good place to start. I'm going to open this up to the audience as well. So if you are listening in and you want to tell us what you are looking for in terms of CPD, please do pop it in the chat. The most interesting ones, the most relevant ones will come up on screen and we'll discuss them, we'll chat about them. But yeah, please let us know as well, because I'm really intrigued to know what everybody is after. I'm going to start, then I'll throw it down to you, Maud, then you, Silvia, then you, Joe. Mine is a little bit controversial, to be honest. I want more subject knowledge stuff out of my CPD. This doesn't come up very often, I find, in CPD discussions, because teachers don't like to say that they want more subject knowledge. We're very defensive about our subject knowledge. But the reason I teach languages is because I love them, and I want to learn more about them. I want to learn more about the cultures of the languages that I teach, about, you know, what's happening with the languages. And language moves so quickly, it can be really difficult for us to keep up in our own time. A friend of mine shared yesterday that she was asked by one of her year 8s, how do you say doom scrolling in French? And she was just like, don't know. So I looked it up, défilé mobile, apparently, which is, yeah. So, you know, there's that. I was lucky enough a couple of years ago, we had an ECT in the department. So when it came to teaching about like the TikTokers and all of the youth culture, I had somebody young that I could talk to and ask, but that's not something that's very easy to keep on top of. And when I sort of sit with my year 13s in French, in Latin, in Mandarin, in German, and we look at course catalogues for universities, I always look at the modules and go, I want to do that. So I would love it if there were more opportunities for us as linguists to indulge ourselves as linguists and pick up more things for our subject knowledge base. So that's top of my wish list. Maud, what do you think? What are you after in CPD?
I think it's a very good point. I'm learning Danish for family reason. So I think I'm following you in the, always trying to have lifelong education. It's really good as well to start learning from scratch a new topic or subject, because then you feel like the pupils you face in your classroom. I know how it feels when you can't say anything, you want to answer, you've got lots of words coming, you can't put them together. I know exactly how it feels. So it's a good thing to keep your enthusiasm going as well. What I look for in CPD is usually strategies and methods, because obviously I'm teaching mostly French, which is my native language. But what I love is when I'm surprised by someone's CPD, because they actually explain something that I knew because I'm a native speaker, and they explain it clearly in a way that I never anticipated. So that's something I love. And anything that's just out of the box, original, and simple as well, that I can just borrow and apply straight in my classroom, is something I appreciate in CPD.
Perfect. Silvia, what are you looking for?
I think for me, what's important, obviously, it's subject expertise as well, but also looking at the pedagogical toolkit. I think for me, what's really key is that when I invest my time, it is something that I can use in my classroom. So I like research. I like research-based strategies, but it has to be something which is applicable in practice. Often we sit in sessions which can be really quite broad, and they kind of like cover all of the subjects. I think we need to have more something subject specific, which applies to our own classroom. I think I spent quite a lot of time over the past 5 years thinking about how students learn, and how can I make them to actually learn the language in the little time that we have in our classrooms, because I'm quite passionate about, languages. I'm passionate about German. That's not always the feeling I get when I'm in my classroom in the UK, unfortunately. So for me, the biggest thing I'm looking for is something practical, practical approaches which are engaging. So it's not boring, but it's not also just game. It is purposeful. So I am always keen to see new ideas. I'm keen to speak to people who actually have tried it in a classroom. It's not just theory they talk about. And they tried it in a classroom, which are comprehensive schools. So we're not looking at perfect, grammar schools, independent schools where students are sitting beautifully and doing as they told. You're in classes which are challenging. How do these things work? How do you get it to work? And really speaking to my students also how we learn, because I think a lot of my students and parents even now understand, why I said homework the way I said homework, why I tell them when they need to be doing it, which it is quite weird, because I had a parents' evening last year and I was telling to my parents, not that they don't do homework, but I was complaining that they do it straight away when they get home. And the parent was kind of like puzzled, saying to me like, well, are you not pleased that they do the homework straight away? I said, well, no, I need them to do it a little bit later. So I need them to almost like forget it, and then they learn it. It's almost like relearning it, because they retain it for longer. And the parent was like, oh, I never thought about that. Oh, I never thought about it, that, actually that could make a difference. So yes, for me, it has to be definitely practical. It's not just, theory.
Very true. Very, very true. And Joe, how about you? What do you look for in your CPD these days?
Well, I mean, just in relation to sort of authentic texts and authentic media, nowadays, as language teachers, we want to keep up to date with slang expressions, doom scrolling, whatever. I think we're blessed. We're very lucky nowadays. I mean, I remember when I first started teaching, and I was ordering Le Monde from the newsagent, and I would pick it up like once a week, whereas now, and this has been the case for a long time, you get access to podcasts, to YouTube clips, to Facebook groups, to online, a whole variety of online places where you can connect with native speakers and interact with them. And I think that's we're in a very, very lucky position from that point of view. So that's wonderful. In relation to what I'm looking for in CPD, I mean, I'm constantly looking for new ideas or spotting trends or discovering new tools or new features of new tools. And certainly in the world of AI, it is moving so quickly. It's unbelievable. And even someone who's sort of invested a lot of time into trying to keep up to date with things, it's almost impossible. So I think, but that said, if you again, in Facebook groups, on LinkedIn and what have you, if you connect with different people, you share ideas. In the language teaching community, we're very blessed by having people like Jérôme Nogues, who's obviously involved in the NCLE work, Esmeralda Salgado, many other people who love to share ideas, and someone like Will Marks, who does his podcast, Language Lab podcast, and interviews people, really good quality audio and all this. I think it's wonderful. We're very, very lucky. We're very fortunate being in the situation that we're in right now in lots of ways, even with the lack of subject-specific CPD in schools, if we're frank, down to funding. And so a lot of the time that the funding will go on whole school issues like safeguarding and so on and so forth, which are very, very important issues. But if people are looking for developing their own professional development, and this has been the case for quite a few years now, it's really been, the onus has been on them to be proactive, to go out and get the CPD that they want, tailored to their own needs by engaging in conversation, following people that you're interested in that reflect your values and things like that. And that's why I think with, say, for example, the rise of the MFL Twitterati, that was really at the beginning of all of that. And that was really sort of, I think in lots of ways, a seminal community. And the benefits of that have been very, very widespread, I think, and friendships have been made as a result of it, and lots and lots and lots of learning. So I think that the way we're going to now is very much, it's down to the individual teacher to sort of go out there, be proactive, get the CPD that they're looking for. That said, one thing that I really, well, and there's lots of things I like about Leo, the new NCLE portal for CPD, is the fact that you can follow your own path with it. You can learn as much as you want. You can, it's all bite-sized chunks. You can reflect as you're going through. One of my favorite quotes from Bernadette Holmes yesterday in the launch event, the webinar, was, and in fact, I've written it down just so I make sure that I say it correctly, which is, no one is evaluating you, you are evaluating yourself. And that to me is at the heart of what Leo stands for, that it's all about each individual teacher finding their own path, working through the different modules, and long may that continue. And also it's wonderful the way in which anyone around the world can register for Leo. Obviously it's aimed at language teachers in the UK, but anybody can register. And I had a message from someone on LinkedIn who's in I think Singapore at the moment. He's moved around in various international jobs, and he was saying, oh yeah, I was following your modules on the AI Stranjo, etc. And that was wonderful. So it's always lovely to get feedback like that as well, I think.
Can I just
Absolutely.
add, Joe, thank you for the praise. Bernadette Holmes is an amazing speaker. Basically, Leo is like her youngest baby. I mean, her children are in their 30s, but Leo is like a concentration of all the work and all the people she's met over her 40 years career. Working with Bernadette is amazing because she knows everything in such details. She's a linguist. She speaks German, French, English. She knows a bit of Spanish. She's just so well learned. And we try to help Bernadette basically at Leo just share her knowledge and expertise that she has accumulated over decades of teaching in the UK. So she's a fountain of knowledge. But what I think is important to note in attending CPD, whether it's online or in person, is that you can also network and meet people. So you were mentioning, Joe, Will Marks, and we've all met at events, and we've all met online. And I think teaching is a lonely profession because you're in front of teenagers most days. And sometimes you crave that, adult connection. So CPD is a good way to network and also help with your mental health and well-being, I think.
Absolutely. Before we go on to the next question, I just want to say hello to Chris and Latifa, who have both left messages for us in the chat. So thank you so much for being here and for engaging with us today. if any of you who are listening has anything to say at all, then please do let us know. As you can probably tell from the last 20 minutes, we're a chatty bunch. So we will happily engage with anything anybody has to say. What I think has been really interesting listening to all of your stories is that we've kind of, between the four of us, hit all of the core reasons for CPD that Bartleton outlines in their 2019 paper, I think it was, which looks at why CPD is important in general. But what really jumps out at me is the fact that there is so much now. You know, like Joe said, it's very easy to jump on to Twitter, onto Blue Sky, onto LinkedIn, and engage with other teachers. And Maud, as you said, that's really important, because I agree with you, this is a really lonely profession. But I think with that, we have kind of lost the, oh, I'm going out for the day to whatever center so that I can sit and go on a course. And I feel like CPD has become a lot more self-directed now. And is much more aimed at what we do in our own time. And
Yes.
I think that means that we've got to be really not passionate, because we are clearly, but we've got to be very self-directed. We've got to remember why CPD is important. So I think that's where I want to go next, is like, how do we justify it when we are so busy with marking, planning, teaching occasionally, you know, sometimes, being on duty, all of the stuff that we have to do. Then we go home and we've got families and, you know, attempting to have hobbies and learning Danish, apparently. How do you then justify spending an hour or two, whatever it might be, every week, logging onto an online platform, connecting with somebody on Twitter? Why is that so important?
I think it's because of well-being, to be fair. It's a breath of fresh air.
Okay.
To have other colleagues experiencing the same and sharing ideas. Whenever I attend an event, I'm really happy when I go back home. And also, I would say my partner is delighted because I can talk about teaching stuff to someone else. So I think it's good for everybody all around.
I personally think, you know, as you said, you know, the online platforms, you know, can be sometimes a little bit, you know, lonely in a sense, but I think you have to have your individual goals. So if you have a goal because you want to achieve something, then there is the intrinsic motivation to do something, right? So it's not something given to you by your senior leaders, or you have to do this because it's part of your, I don't know, appraisal, or you have to tick a box somewhere. So I think if you invest your own time, it has to be because you're interested in it, you want to progress, you want to better yourself as a person. And on the other hand, I really agree with you, Maud, that when we go to this in-person event, it is the social event. It is the social thing, you know, like Language World. It's an amazing event because everybody gets together. You get to meet all of these people you might have seen online on the screen. You get to speak to them in person. You can actually sit down and have, I don't know, a cup of coffee with them or a meal with them. And you see people in a different light. And it's such an amazing community because I think when I listen to my colleagues from other subjects, we are really, really generous with sharing. And we really will go out of the way to support each other, give things for free, you know, to save colleagues time, to, you know, to make sure that their well-being is looked after, that the work-life balance is looked after, the workload is reduced. So I think this is also, you know, why we do CPD. Yes, to better ourselves, to have our individual goals and aims, what we want to achieve. But as you said, it's the cultural thing as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think we are all, I mean, teachers are usually very self-driven. We love learning. So CPD is just what rocks our boats. You know, it's just that thirst for learning more. And I'm trying to nurture that in my pupils. So I would tell them, for instance, I would say, oh, I've created a booklet, I'm going to share it, and other teachers like it. And I would tell them, I'm going to print it for you. And I try and convey that excitement. And sometimes I tell them, oh, I found that brilliant thing online. Let's see how we can play with it today. And I think when you tell your pupils what you do, first they realize how engaged you are with the subject, and it's contagious enthusiasm. So I think that's also an aspect of CPD.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also think that well, I totally agree in the fact that at events when you meet people face to face, if you haven't seen them for 6 months, a year, and what have you, that it is wonderful. And in a way, the CPD goes to one side. In a way, it's just actually viscerally being in the same room with people who you like, who are your friends, or what have you, who maybe you've been connecting with for a long time, but you haven't seen for a long time face to face, and you can have those little chats around the water cooler and this sort of thing. I think that is incredibly important and a sign of our times, I think, in lots of ways. The way in which, for those people that don't like, chit chat, if you've been, connected via different types of social media, and you actually know the fact that someone has got a cat called whatever, or likes to go to such a place on holiday, or supports a certain football team, then you know a little bit about them and you can have a real conversation. That's something which I absolutely love. But I also think that we need to recognize the fact that not everybody feels like we do. And even though we all recognize that professional development is very important, I think there are lots of people who for whatever reason, are not willing to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to come into London and to have a meeting, or to attend an event, or get up in the middle of the night to see a webinar because they're excited about that particular topic. So I think we need to recognize that fact, and we need to think about, that we're not just preaching to the converted, because there are lots and lots of people who don't engage with social media, who see their job as 9 to 5, and probably feel a bit let down by the fact that they don't get subject-specific CPD, or they can't have a day in a hotel learning from a trainer, and so on and so forth. So I think there's that issue. But I also think, and I know I would say this, but I also genuinely think that AI can help with workload, and so you can free up more time. You can create, let's say, lesson plans more quickly, or a nice text or an assessment more quickly, and that means that it can free up more time for you at home, so you have more quality time with your family, that you get more sleep, and so on and so forth. And that's why I put so much time and effort into making sure that I selected very carefully the sorts of tutorials that I created for the Strand, to try as much as possible to touch upon things like lesson planning, differentiation, catering to students with different neurodivergencies, assessment, work-life balance, all those things. I think AI can really help with. But I think it's a really big picture. But it's great that we're all enthusiastic. But I know, particularly when you're invited to come in and work, let's say, with a whole department, and the head of department is really keen, etc., which is lovely, and you get people that are really keen, and you might, I'm not saying this for every department, you might get 1 or 2 people who are like sitting there, they've been forced to have this training, they're tutting, etc., or they're rolling their eyes, and those people are important as well. And I try my best, obviously, to cater to everyone's needs, but I think that we need to be realistic about the fact that not everyone is super enthusiastic, or CPD junkies, as people have said in the past, around this. But it is lovely to share time with everyone right now, obviously. But I think, not everyone is like that. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Inclusion is really important. And I think that's the beauty of Leo's platform, the Leo platform, because if you are, you might have members of staff who are neurodivergent and don't want to interact with a lot of people in their spare time, but you can go on Leo with your phone. You can do 2 units, you can do 4, you can, if you're a mother who's breastfeeding and you want to stay in touch with your subject knowledge or your strategies, you can do it when you're busy in the middle of the night. It's you can use it anytime you want. And also, it's, as you said, Joe, it's free. So I think anyone in the world, we don't know people's circumstances. They might not be able to afford to travel or to access good quality CPD. So I think it's really, really crucial for inclusion that we have very good quality bespoke CPD accessible, as long as you have a phone and an internet connection.
Just going back to both of you, what you just said, I just wanted to mention that you're absolutely right. If you talk about accessibility, because not everybody, as you said, Joe, can travel. So having things online is, there is no reason why people can't reach out to it. So having the platform, it's absolutely must. We all see the boom in CPD and the hunger for knowledge during pandemic. We were all doing every possible webinar going out there because yes, it was the human connection, but also it made it accessible for us. We realized actually the technology can be a really good friend because that's how we can get to ourselves to the different places. And, and having the platform and having, the opportunity to tap in when you want to, have a break and pause when you feel, oh, today I'm tired, or this week is been really difficult. So you can do it in your own pace. And as you mentioned, that it's free. That's probably key as well, because obviously paying big subscriptions to different platforms to do training can be quite costly then.
Yeah. Sorry, Maud.
Yes, I just saw Chris Fry's question, and I think it's a really good question. Whenever I'm designing a unit, I'm trying to think on how the people can use it. So if you're head of department and you really want your department to work on target language, well, you can use some of the units because they're going to be designed to use as a group. So you can do that in half an hour with your team. So if you have a reluctant teacher who, doesn't really use the target language, you can just say, on Thursday at 3:30, we're going to do half an hour on Leo, and we're going to work at strategies to make the target language more accessible in our lessons for our pupils. So I think we can slowly guide our teachers who are a bit reluctant towards the platform by doing it together. I think it's a good way of starting.
Yeah,
and it's really important as well.
Exactly right. Sorry, Darren.
Oh, no, you're right, Joe. You're fine. I would just say I think it's really important to be honest about what the CPD is for and what CPD does. So in that Bartlett article that I referenced a few minutes ago, they talk about how we do CPD in order to be better teachers. And we kind of assume that means that our learners will automatically be better learners. But there's not necessarily a correlation there, and that's okay. You can do the CPD in order to be a better teacher, in order to improve your skills, in order to re-spark that passion, like Chris said. And I think if you don't then just assume that your learners are going to be magically amazing because of it, you can see CPD in a more grounded way, I think, and you can look them for what the benefits actually are, as opposed to what you think they ought to be.
Yeah, I mean, something that I do in training sessions is I try to, as much as possible, make the content as relevant as possible to the people in front of me, either face-to-face or online. And what I try to do in relation to, say, use of AI, ChatGPT, etc., is I will ask for an example topic or an example year group or a language and so on and so forth, and then we'll create something there, and then we'll create a lesson plan, we'll create a storybook, we'll create a song in the target language, for example, and that normally one puts a smile on people's faces, and a lot of times people literally say wow as well, which I absolutely love. So we have lots of wow moments during the session, because it is amazing the way in which you can create multimedia content literally in a matter of seconds. And I think that is one way to spark the interest in people that maybe are feeling, jaded, or they just have other responsibilities, other commitments, which of course we must recognize. So I think that making it as relevant as possible and involving them in the CPD as well. Again, that's why I really like Leo from the point of view that it is around self-directed learning. But I also think, from what Maud was saying about having, let's say, a learning buddy or someone to support them, or sitting with Nelly, which is a very old expression, which is basically meaning the same thing. Having a kind colleague, just showing a few things to someone, I think that's also very, very important as well. And we must be inclusive. We must try and include people as much as possible. And I think, I agree with you, Silvia, in relation to all the online CPD that people were having during the pandemic. I mean, I helped to organize about 150 technology and language teaching webinars with Helen Myers, the Association for Language Learning, all of which was done for free, because morally it felt, one, the right thing to do, and two, people really needed it, I think. And people have been very kind to me when I've met them face to face, saying about how important that was, and how everyone was sort of scrambling around trying to work out how to teach remotely, and those sorts of professional development opportunities with people literally from all around the world, all these contacts that I've built up over the years, people from Australia, from the States and what have you, who I then contacted and said, would you be willing to give an hour of your time to present to an international audience, which is always a good way of selling it, and learn and grow with them. And nearly everybody said yes. So I think one of the silver linings of the pandemic is the change in mindset around the use of CPD that's online. I think because maybe in the past people would be happy enough to all get in their cars, all drive for an hour to be in the same place in the same room, which is lovely. But why not do that on Zoom or another platform instead? And I think people now are thinking more carefully about these sorts of offers. And as a result of what we went through in the pandemic, people are okay now with having online meetings and see it in a way in the same way. I mean, the great thing about online CPD is it's very quick as opposed to face-to-face training. For example, in the pandemic, I can remember on occasions, getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do a 7 o'clock webinar for a language department in Australia, doing the equivalent for the UK around, say, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then doing a tilt webinar, technology and language teaching webinar for ALL at 8 o'clock in the evening. Now, if I'm invited to go somewhere like London or something, then it's going to take me X number of hours to get there from the Isle of Wight, do, let's say, the 2-hour session, and then, it could easily be 4 or 5 hours each way. So it's a lot of my time traveling for 1 2-hour session. But that delight of meeting people face to face, and that sort of, again, visceral feeling of being in the same room and being able to walk around and look over people's shoulders at their laptops and immediately get an idea of where you are, where each person is with their learning, which you can't do online because there's the people who are feeling nervous or not very, let's say, enthusiastic. They'd be the last people that'd be willing to share their screen. So I think there are lots of advantages and disadvantages of online and face-to-face CPD. But again, with Leo, the way in which it can mean that you can learn essentially 24/7 on your mobile phone, on your computer, on whichever device you want to access, then it's a win-win. And again, in relation to thinking about other communities that maybe are not as technology rich, when I did a session for the British Council South Asia Teaching English online conference in July, I was particularly told to reformat my content to make sure that it was, one, mobile friendly, and two, in a low connectivity environment. In other words, if I was showing how to make a song using AI, I'd have to make it really clear how you can download that MP3 and then play it offline in the classroom, and how you can make a worksheet, let's say using ChatGPT, which is very easy to do, but then print that off and then give that out as 30 copies to the children in the classroom. Because again, we don't necessarily appreciate sometimes how lucky we are in the UK and the funding that we do have. I know that funding is poor, maybe compared, or we'd always like to have more funding, but actually, that we do have, generally speaking, good funding in relation to technology. Most classrooms have got whiteboards, projectors, and so on and so forth. Whereas in other countries served by the British Council, that certainly is not the case. And so we need to think about every sort of different environment, I think, that we might want to provide CPD for as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maud, for picking up on Chris's question there. And Chris, I hope that answered your question. We are now, speaking of multimedia presentations, we're just going to take a very quick video interlude.
I enjoy learning languages at school because I think it's a great way to communicate to people, and I think when I'm older I want to travel the world and speak languages fluently.
I like engaging with the platform to learn about good practice and to share good ideas and to see what other schools are doing and what the research is saying will help with my language teaching. The platform has really practical examples of what you can implement in your classroom so that you can implement new strategies and ideas which will ultimately help the children, because that's ultimately the most important thing in our teaching.
What I really like about German is when we learn about the history of it. So last year we did a lot about Berlin and the history of the people who actually lived there. I thought that was super interesting.
All right, we have heard a lot about Leo so far this evening. So remember, if you're interested, please head over to ncle.ucl.ac.uk. From there, you can access the Leo front page, which will take you to the sign-up page and into all of the different modules that you can study. I was having an explore yesterday, and I can see myself spending many, many hours over the next few weeks developing my skills. One of the things that leapt out to me as I was exploring the website was the real emphasis, the real focus, I suppose, on what they call principal practice or self-reflection. And this idea of kind of, like we've already discussed, being responsible for your own CPD, being responsible for what you need to learn, but also understanding whether you yourself are making progress in the same way that you might understand that for your students, I suppose. So Maud, I think I'm going to ask you this one first, if that's okay. Why do you think that principal practice is especially important?
Because we are professionals and we know what matters. So the whole content on Leo is always research informed. We want to stay in touch with what's going on in the academic world. We also want evidence-based strategies. And this is why I'm working in the classroom. So my pupils are a bit like my guinea pigs. I try new strategies with them and I always assume if it works with them, it's bound to work with all the pupils. Now you can also, as a professional teacher, adapt the resources. And you need to be really aware of who you are in front of you. So the principles for NCLE and the Leo platform is to be very responsive to the pupils in front of you. So you need to have asset-based pedagogies. There is no point preparing a lesson if you don't know who you have in the classroom. And also you need to adjust it constantly. I always say that I can prepare an amazing lesson and it might be a success with my year 8 F, but with my year 8 A, it might completely collapse. So nothing is perfect. And that's the whole point of Leo. We want to empower teachers to really work with what they have in the classroom. They might not have any resources. My dictionaries are crumbling, but I can still prepare a good lesson. So because I have done all that self-reflective work using the platform, but also creating units for it. So all we do is just making sure that teachers feel empowered, they have strategies that work, and then they can just sometimes improvise because you also have to have that flexibility.
And I believe this is much easier probably to do for expert teachers or teachers who've been teaching for quite a while, the adaptive responsive teaching. But I think when you have colleagues who are just starting off, who are ECTs or maybe in the first 2 or 3 years of their teaching career, I think that's where the CPD and the modules can come really useful because they might not have refined the art of reading the room, okay, they're not getting it. Okay, so how can I explain it differently? What can I do? What kind of analogy can I use? What kind of examples, even from English, can I draw? For example, sometimes I teach past tense and I will teach it in the first instance explicitly, and I teach it through English. So we look at past tense in English, first of all, regular, irregular verbs, and then we start going into German. So they can relate it. They can see it's actually similar. We've got similar kind of things in our language compared to the foreign language. And these are the things you really probably, as an experienced teacher, kind of sometimes do automatically. Like when you drive a car, you don't think about what you're doing. But, having new teachers, I think that's where they can benefit from the CPD, but also from when we talk about reflection, reflecting on their practice, then maybe talking to colleagues within their department. Look, I'm struggling with this. What would you suggest I do? Or can I come and drop in your lesson and have a look at how you do it? Or whether it is department meeting and you decide, okay, we're struggling with this. So how do you teach it? Can you show us? Can you show us how you do it? And then find something which works for them. So CPD and research is a great thing, but how can we then put it into the practicality? We know all of the theory, okay? Our ECTs know the theory. They've been through the training. They've been doing it for a year. How can I turn it into practice?
Absolutely. Although Oh, sorry, Joe, was that you saying something?
No.
No? Oh, okay, we must have had some interference. Yeah, I think the merging of theory and practice is really interesting, isn't it? I love me a bit of theory. As anybody who is signed up for TTR MFL Journal Club will know, I cannot get enough of a good journal article. And I do understand why we kind of want to be able to pick these things out of CPD, out of theory, and be able to immediately apply them in the classroom. But one of the things that I really liked about the modules and about this kind of idea of reflection is that it does force us to slow down and to really understand why we are going for these ideas that we're going for. Because I think, it's so easy to jump on the bandwagon, isn't it, and do the latest thing because it's what everybody is talking about in the MFL Twitterati, and to not really know why you're doing it apart from the fact that you're being told it's best practice. So I think it is good to have that theoretical underpinning and to know what that theory is so that you then know why you're building your practice on top of it.
We have to be flexible because I work for an academy, for instance, and we have academy-specific CPD. So it's important to make sure that we also represent these teachers or working structures that are very inflexible. So sometimes I really think about what I put in my units, and I'm really thinking, okay, some teachers are not allowed to use the digital board now anymore. They have to use visualizers. Some teachers have to use a booklet. So I'm also creating resources that they can download, adapt, print, and just use if they don't have a digital environment. Because we also need to be aware that being a good teacher, sometimes you might have an electricity power cut and you're going to have to teach without anything, just maybe paper and pen. So everything has to be, something that you can tailor for your own setting.
Absolutely. And I think quite often that's one of the downsides, isn't it, to the whole school CPD or the CPD that encourages us all to go along, early in the morning, is that it has to be very generic to appeal to everybody. But as Joe said earlier on, sometimes you do get people who sit there rolling their eyes or, not really taking it in. So yeah, that's why I really like this kind of modular, individualized approach. Even though it is kind of taking away the community of practice element, we can find that elsewhere, but it is allowing you to really focus on what you need and what is right for your setting and your school. And I think, if we think about disadvantaged settings in particular, I think that's incredibly important because we know that there is some elitism seen in the study of language. We know that it is sometimes seen as like the private school subject. We know that people don't see the employability viability of it. And so I think, if you can make sure that you've got your CPD tailored very specific to your setting, then you can learn things that are going to help your pupils to engage with the subject and to understand why it's important.
Oh, wow, we've got 200 live viewers. That's cool.
That is amazing. We are loving that.
It's always nice to celebrate such things. One thing I was going to pick up on, Darren, if that's okay, was when Silvia was talking about feedback. And one thing that I've been doing a lot recently is asking the AI, be it ChatGPT or Notebook LM, which I'm a big fan of, for feedback in relation to, let's say, I've created a presentation, I've exported it as a PDF, I've then uploaded it to, let's say, ChatGPT or Notebook LM, and then I will then ask it for feedback. And it's really, really useful and very detailed about the feedback it can give, and you can say the sorts of feedback that you would like, and obviously this is evidence-based in relation to Dylan William, the idea of the importance of just-in-time feedback, or the quicker you get the feedback, the better. And one thing that I've tried out a lot recently is a Socrative approach to feedback, particularly in relation to lesson planning. So what I mean by that is I will say to, let's say, ChatGPT, can you ask me 10 questions around a particular topic? So it could be, if you're a language teacher, it could be around, let's say, the lesson plan that you've done the first pass on, that you've created the lesson plan, you've watched my video tutorial on this, you've made your lesson plan, and then you say to ChatGPT, can you ask me 10 questions about the prior learning of the students for this lesson? And so that it will then ask you 10 questions, and you say, ask me a question, I'll then give you the answer. Ask me another question, I'll give you the answer. And then based on all my answers, I then want you to improve the lesson plan, because the AI will understand the context of where the students are coming from, be them disadvantaged or what have you, into the lesson. And by having that Socrative approach, I think that's very, very useful. In some CPD sessions, the last thing I do is I give someone a prompt. Everyone a prompt, again, using the Socrative approach, which means that what they will do is they will be asked 10, 15 questions about the CPD that they've done. And then based on their answers, they'll talk a little bit about their what role they have, the subject they teach, what they've learned, what they would like to work on, and so on and so forth. And then it then creates a personalized developmental plan for each individual teacher as a result of that, which you couldn't do very quickly if you were to do it manually in the traditional way. And just in relation to this particular session today, Darren very kindly shared the questions with us before, or a guide to the questions, as it were. And so again, I put those into ChatGPT, and I said, can you ask me about each question, one after the other? I will then answer honestly what I think the answer should be. And then based on my answers, can you write me a set of notes, which I've got literally live right now on my second screen. As not that I've been looking at them that much, but as a guide to support me and help me in my individual learning. And then likewise, I uploaded a PDF of these notes into Notebook LM, and you're able to create what's called an audio overview, which is essentially like a podcast, and you can go for shorter length, default length, or longer length. I went for the longer length, and it made a 30-minute AI-generated interview with two hosts talking about my notes. And that could be around a lesson plan. It could be around a resource. It's now available in a whole range of different languages. So you could use it for language learning, for creating bespoke listening resources. And I think, again, with AI, it's now easy to make personalized multimodal resources to help each individual person with their personalized learning. So yay for that.
Joe, I'm really interested in your thoughts on AI, particularly because that's quite a chunky module that we've got in Leo. We'll talk more about that in a moment. I wanted to come to Silvia first, though, because, of course, German being your area of expertise, and with the Goethe Institute so firmly aligned with what the NCLE are doing, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what we're seeing in German at the moment, why we've kind of got this German focus. So I looked at the language trends again today, the 2025 one, and we have seen that over the past couple of years, we had schools offering German, so not even entries, but schools that are physically offering them, are down this year from where they were last year. So some lucky German teachers have obviously been able to retire. But luckily, we are still up from where we were in 2023, which is a good thing. So from your point of view, kind of where are we at the moment with training a generation of Germanists?
Well, that's a good question, Darren, because according obviously to the language trends, England, the number of schools offering German has, decreased again from 2024, following a small increase which we had in 2023. So this suggests that while there has been a short-term kind of revival of the language, perhaps due to some of the targeted initiative that we've been putting in place, or post-pandemic curriculum realignments, it's still, declining. So compared to Spanish and French, German is still quite disproportionately underrepresented, particularly in comprehensive schools. So it seems to appear that there is a widening gap between, the independent and state sector. So it's becoming a little bit more like an elitist language. And I think one of the reasons probably for that is that we face issues with staffing, because obviously if German is not taken up to GCSE and is not taken up to A-level and is not taken up to degrees, that means shortages of teachers. So when I speak to colleagues up north especially, that seems to be disappearing big time from the curriculum, and they're struggling to recruit. It could be also that, one of the reasons sometimes German is perceived as the more difficult language. So that might be one of the misconceptions of maybe senior leaders preferring to have other language. From French, it's logical because many primary schools will teach French as the first language. Okay, so it seems to be logical then to continue in secondary, but also that there has been the perception that Spanish might be easier to pick up than German. So I think all of these things kind of play into what's happening. And also, I think part of the reason is that there is not as much awareness in the sense of why is German useful? Where can you use German, despite it being one of the largest economies, and one of the biggest trading partners we have in the UK, because many people associate languages with where they travel, where they go on holidays. So it's difficult to see the benefit of that, because how many people would say, "Oh, I'm going on holiday to Germany"? They will say, "I'm going on a holiday to Spain or France," but not necessarily to Germany. So I think there is a lot of needs to be possibly done on a bigger scale. I mean, Goethe Institute, which obviously I'm part of as part of my role of a GEM, they are amazing. They're putting together so much stuff. I mean, with GEMs, we've got now 20 GEMs. We have the 9 original ones, and they have recruited another 11. There is 2 different ways that we can support you. It could be through coaching or mentoring, and that's really, I really like that role, because I had a role for SLE before. Obviously, SLEs don't exist anymore. And SLE role was later when the school calls you, the senior leaders calls you, and you come to fix the problem in the school. Where GEM is nothing like that. Okay, you are invited by the head of department or by a colleague. So the teachers want you to come, want you to work with them. And it's really more of a coaching program. Even though it's called mentors, we are more coaches. It's a friendly chat with the colleagues to try different strategies to look at what we can do. Another way we can support is also through CPD. So you would have seen on the Leo platform that there is a lot of CPD from Goethe Institute that was developed by the colleagues from Goethe Institute. So all of the materials that you see there, they are really trying hard to introduce German into school where there is no, for example, the language on offer, or even as a GCSE or Key Stage 3 through clubs. So at the moment, there are 3 primary school clubs, 3 secondary school clubs, brand new music club in secondary schools. All of the materials are free. Okay, so the schools don't have to pay anything for that. Students can be club leaders. So there is a lot of initiative going into that. All of the materials, again, developed by the Goethe Institute. They do career roadshows. They do lots of different events. At the moment, there is an eco-scoop competition about sustainability. So there is tons and tons behind the scenes. It's just getting it out there into schools, and that schools are aware of that.
Absolutely. Oh, excuse me. I think I'm not teaching any German this year, and I'm really sad about that, especially at this time of year. I love teaching German right now because we've got so many amazing holidays coming up. It was the first day in a long time that I didn't need to talk to anybody about the Berlin Wall and explain what it was and feel old while explaining what it was. I'm not going to get to make Krampus cards with anybody this year. I'm not going to be able to scare my year 8s with the Krampus run. There's so much amazing culture and history that can be done with German alongside the linguistic benefits. All of the research that is done into native English speakers learning foreign languages proves that for us, Dutch is actually the easiest foreign language to learn because it's the closest linguistically to English. But then it's not a short leap from Dutch to German. And so, for native English speakers, it should be a relatively straightforward language to pick up. I found it quite a straightforward language to pick up, despite the fact that it does have this reputation of being difficult, just because your verbs have very strict places about where they should go.
Before I forget, I wanted to also mention, because I don't know whether schools are aware of that. Obviously, the GEM work is completely free. Okay, so the coaching program and everything, there is no cost to the school. Another interesting offer might be for schools which offer a Duke of Edinburgh. there is a part of Goethe work which is called the Gemagin Award. So they work on the language skills and upskilling in the language, and that counts towards the Duke of Edinburgh Award as well as one of the criteria to pass the award. So that might be again something interesting to schools in terms of how they can introduce German via club if that's something they cannot fit onto the timetable, and maybe as time progresses, it will reappear on the timetable, because that's obviously the aim of it as well. But just offering the language and the opportunity to students and to children is there.
And that's the other thing is, I don't want to veer too far off of what our topic is today, but quite often when we offer languages to our young people, it's to get a GCSE, to get an A-level. And sometimes we forget that you can just learn a language because it's good to learn a language. You can learn a language for your DOE, for your skill. And so it's really encouraging that the Goethe Institute is doing that and is offering kind of other pathways into picking German up. And, I'm sure that we will see the same for French coming out of the Institut Français at some point. I'm sure we will see the same for Spanish coming out of, someone's going to need to tell me the Spanish version, because that's not one of my languages.
The Cervantes.
Cervantes, yes.
So, yeah, I think it's really good to look at these institutes, to look at the, what's on offer outside of, the traditional GCSE and A-level pathways, the criteria, because there's a lot being done, and quite often more than we realize.
I think it's a very good point you made, Darren, about the cultural aspect. I'm working on the intercultural dimension for a next module that I'm hoping is going to be released for Christmas. So that will be a Christmas stocking item. I think it's a very good way to motivate students, or pupils, I should say, and also pupils who are maybe not the ones who are going to do A-level in the language. Cultural input is something that they really crave. Whenever I do a cultural heavy lesson, they really shine and they are really excited to learn more. So I think if we can just try and weave more cultural aspects in our lessons, we will get more pupils to sign up for a GCSE language. Whatever the end result, do we want them to do a GCSE or not? Do we want them to go into A-level or not? I think if we really work on the cultural aspects, we will help them broaden their horizon, which is part of our professional standards, isn't it?
Yes. Absolutely. And I think, in terms of cultural capital, in terms of all of that really nice wider curriculum stuff, our subject is perfect. And so, if we can use what the NCLE is doing, not only to inform our own CPD, but to encourage conversations like the one that we're having, hopefully among our audience as well. Thank you again for tuning in today. Then that can only be a positive thing, I think.
In terms of German, there has been a lot of progress made in the NCLE, schools that with German. There was a lot of work gone beyond the scenes where German has been, really kind of promoted and pushed. So the connections, between these networks do make a difference, and I think it's something that we need to cherish and support.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. Oh, okay. We are about 10 minutes away from ending. This has been an amazing chat. I'm so excited. I'm actually really excited to finish the show so that I can go and work on a module. Is that sad? But before we do, Joe, I just want to come back to you a second, because as anybody who has spoken to me all of 5 minutes in the past 6 months will know, I'm not the biggest fan of AI, and yet it seems to be everywhere. I'm really hoping that doing your modules on the NCLE will convert me, will change my mind. In your expert opinion, because there is nobody better situated to speak on this than you, in my opinion, is AI the future of edutech? Is it where it's going, or are we in like the dot-com bubble was, and there will be some kind of other technology boom in a few years that we will then also have to get our heads around? Is it worth our time doing the CPD about AI?
Absolutely not. No, obviously, yeah. I wouldn't have put in hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of work if I didn't think it was worthwhile. But in relation to predicting the future. I think it's always foolhardy to predict the future, particularly with technology. But I again genuinely feel that with the AI revolution, if that's what you want to call it, that there has been a significant paradigm shift in relation to now how quickly you can create content, and that's what the tutorials are really all about. I mean, if you think back to when we first had Google Docs and the fact that you could collaborate with somebody else in real time anywhere in the world, that seemed to be amazing. Now we can talk to our computer and giving it feedback and so on and so forth. It's really we've seen huge change in the last 25 or so years in relation to technology, and I've tried to keep up to date as much as I possibly can with it. But I think predicting what's going to happen in the next 3-5 years, I don't know what's happening next week in AI, because things are moving so quickly, and it's really just the big companies like Google, like Microsoft, et cetera, that no doubt are prototyping things many years down the line, and then choose when they then bring it out to the general public. So but the reason I put all that time and effort into making the tutorials was because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to allow teachers to reduce their workload. That was the whole point, really, because we know that people are time poor. We know that they're not getting subject specific CPD as much as they would like to. And so Leo is such a wonderful platform in the way in which they can get that CPD. They can reflect on the path that they take in it. And yeah, in relation to AI, I just think I think it's wonderful. I mean, just going back to the intercultural dimension of what we were talking about a moment ago, in one of the modules, I show how you can use ChatGPT to generate what's called a KML file, which is essentially the code that you need to import into a Google Earth project, and then you can create your own tour of wherever you want in the world. So, for example, you could adapt the prompt that I put into the tutorial, and you could then say, make a KML file looking at 10 places in Berlin, for example, 10 famous places in Berlin, and then for each place have a little one paragraph description of that place at the appropriate level, the appropriate language, and so on and so forth. And in the tutorial, you'll see that it can then do that. You can then turn that into a Google Earth project. And then when you click on each pin that then appears as if by magic, then you see the little text appearing, like a screen tip, as it were. And then I also show how you can then take all those different bits of text and then create an interactive quiz with it as well. And I mean, it's amazing. I get excited still now. I mean, as you know, I'm an enthusiast, and I don't think that enthusiasm is going to waver anytime soon. And I just think that the AI is really amazing. I'm not saying it's all perfect. It makes mistakes. You need to check for accuracy, for hallucination, for bias. You need to make sure if you're using AI with students that they're not inputting personal information, that they use their critical thinking skills to make sure that the content which is coming up is bona fide. That's not a new thing. That's been around for ages. We used to call it digital literacy. It's now AI literacy. And from the point of view of teachers, making sure that you check everything to make sure it's classroom ready. But I do generally think that it's going to save a lot of time. But what's an interesting point in relation to that is at the beginning of most sessions, I run a survey. I use a tool called directpoll.com. And I run a survey with one question: how AI savvy are you? And then you have 4 different options. The first one is essentially, I'm a newbie. I've heard about ChatGPT, but that's all. I haven't tried out at all. 2 would be that I've created a lesson plan or a text or an assessment, but that's all. I've dabbled a little bit. 3 would be that I'm regularly creating lesson plans, assessments, and so on and so forth. And then 4 would be I'm a bit of a ninja, and I've developed very good prompt engineering skills, and I'm using it seamlessly within my workload. And when I do this, most of the time, most people identify themselves as a 2. In other words, that they're a dabbler. They played around a little bit. And again, that's why I think that having all these video tutorials available in Leo is going to really help them go from level 2 to level 3, or wherever they may be, they can move forward. And then what I normally do is you can export the results of that survey as an Excel spreadsheet, upload it into ChatGPT because it is anonymous. There's no personal data in there, and ask it to suggest how people that have identified as level 1 can go to 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to 4. And because it gets to know you over a time, that's how AI works. It will make suggestions based on the CPD that I've offered in the past. And so that's really lovely to see. But things like some of the things we talked about already, you know, if you're, let's say, a 2 and you want to go to 3 or a 3 to 4, ask someone to help you as a learning buddy to give you a bit of support with something. Try out different tools like TurboScribe for creating a transcript of a YouTube clip, or Brisk Teaching for creating a Google quiz or a Microsoft quiz literally within seconds, or Mizu. I mean, another thing which we haven't talked about yet is the showcase webinar that we did back in June, when the different networks were able to share some good practice that they had been working on. Each network had an AI project they worked on. So we had, for example, Chris Parry from the Trent and Tame network, who had done a deep dive into using Mizu with students. So Mizu, if you don't know, is an educational chatbot, which is designed to be used with students. It's GDPR compliant. And he'd had great success with a Key Stage 3 class and a Key Stage 4 class in helping them build their confidence, practice their speaking work in different languages. That was fantastic. And then we had Emily Lewis from Thames West, who'd been using ChatGPT for feedback on student work, on Hinge questions, and showing how she did that with her workflow. And then we had Michelle Massey and Catherine Woodward from the Kinder Network, showing how you can use Suno, Suno, to create target language songs, which I know that they showed at Language World this year, which went down an absolute storm, and everyone was dying to create their own songs using AI. So there's lots of practical examples out there of real teachers sharing good practice on how they're using AI. So I don't think it's going away anywhere anytime soon, for sure.
Absolutely. Right, to finish off, we've had a couple of things come up in the chat which has been really interesting. Al-Shifa, I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Forgive me if I haven't. I'm going to answer your question, and then if I'm wrong, then please do correct me, everybody. Do you have any eligibility criteria to do CPD? So like I said, I signed up for Leo yesterday. Just by going to ncle.ucl.ac.uk. From there was a nice pink button that took me to a sign-up form, and that was all I had to do. I input my email address, and I went straight through to the modules. I didn't need to give any kind of qualifications. I didn't need to put my CV in, nothing like that. It's a very straightforward platform that it seems like anyone can access.
Yes, that's the whole point. Anyone who's interested in learning languages and teaching languages eventually can sign up. You just need an internet connection and some time, and then you can join us on the platform.
Perfect. And then Chris had a really interesting point just now about how, you know, AI is very much a being given to us as a time-saving workload tool, which is fantastic, and it is something that teachers need. And I do think it's really important, as Chris says, to make sure that we do take that next level. Because sometimes, I don't know about all of you, but in school I find that you will occasionally just have, with EdTech, the same beginner's CPD over and over again. So eventually you become very, very skilled at using ChatGPT to plan your lessons, but you are ready to take that next step. But I suppose that's where an individual platform like Leo can be really helpful, because if your whole department is signed up to it, then those teachers who still need it for time saving can go and they can learn how to properly prompt. Whereas those who want to learn to do what I saw today with making scarily realistic videos of people talking, you know, there is the option to do that. And that's why personalized CPD, I think, is so important.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think it's fantastic to be able to ask other practitioners questions and reflect and work together, so that learning is collaborative. And that's why the place I mentioned already, my Facebook group, Language Teaching with AI, is a great opportunity to take you to the next level, because you can see good examples of other people's practice, and then you can interact, you can leave comments, you can submit your own posts, and so on and so forth. So I think that is another way in which we can learn all together and everyone can support each other.
Absolutely. I can think of no better message to end our show on. So I would like to say thank you so much to Silvia, to Maud, and to Joe for joining me this evening. I've made pages of notes. My thesis is going to be, I have to put the three of you on my dedications page, I think, because this has been incredibly helpful. And I hope that everyone has been listening has taken something away from it, either reinforced for you personally the importance of CPD, why we need to be lifelong learners as much as teachers. And please, everybody, do head over to, like I said, ncle.ucl.ac.uk. It's on my screen over there to make sure that I don't mess it up, because it's so many letters. And sign up for Leo, because, as I said, I've done a bit of exploration, and it seems to be a wonderful platform. And I can't wait to see what the three of you and the NCLE team come up with next, because I think this is really exciting. So thank you all 350. Look at that. Look at that. See,
now,
if you
sorry, Darren, just, as you saying, as you mentioned the website, I want to also mention the Goethe Institute in the website in terms of the German clubs and the culture days. So if you head into Goethe Institute website and you type in German clubs and culture days, you can then see all of the events that are happening and what you need to do in terms of the clubs if you want to sign up for one and give it a go in your school. Sorry.
No, that's good. Let's just do all the plugs while we're plugging. If you fancy being part of the TTR MFL Journal Club, you can head over to the TTR website and we have a sign-up form there. I send every month an article for you to read. Then we have a Zoom meeting where we just get together and we have a chat about it. It's always a good time. Does anybody else have anything to plug before we go?
Just a quick mention of the NCLE newsletter. So you can subscribe to the NCLE newsletter and keep up to date with all the latest updates. That's how I found out about the showcase webinar that I attended yesterday as a delegate. I was just spamming in the chat, obviously, but you find out about all the latest webinars that the NCLE are offering, and so it's a great place to keep your fingers on the pulse and to learn about the latest things that are happening. So a good tip there, good plug.
It's a big collaboration. We are all working hard to promote languages. The Goethe Institute, the British Council, NCLE, UCL, Teachers Talk Radio. I think we really value languages in the UK. We need to work hard at it. So let's do it all together.
And for my Germanist teachers, you can sign up also to the Goethe Institute newsletter, Joe. Sorry, I'm just plugging that in there as well.
Absolutely. Right, we do have to end it there because we've got Tom coming up in 10 minutes with another show. So please do stay tuned for that. But again, massive thanks to Silvia, to Maud, to Joe. This won't be the last you will hear from us about the NCLE, about Leo, about CPD in MFL. So please do go and track down these wonderful people online. You should be following them already, but in case you're not, please do go and find them because they all are sending out wonderful things all of the time. Have yourselves a fantastic evening. Go do some CPD, and I will see you on Saturday morning for the Saturday Breakfast Show. Thank you very much.
Outstanding, a world-class vision, a world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.